This was basically Tinder on a bigger budget. What? Yeah. Keberekile, guys. I hope you appreciate it. Keberekile for this review. Getting through that episode. Mess. It was a mess. It was, as you can tell, I've been done with Tammy for a while, but like today, namhlanje, and laying down the law as to what you expect a good wife to be doing. And if she wasn't going to do any of these things, you were going to tell your mother. You were going to tell your mommy and make sure that mommy knows that Sitobile doesn't want to pack my bags. And she's such a bad wife. Or just because I'm a breadwinner, I can be out here. Trash ass behavior. But nobody's going to tell me anything because they're thinking with their stomachs. Because the final comment was Untombi asking Zitobile if she's dating. This woman is going to sit there and tell us yes. She's seeing somebody. Why? Hlala phansi, girl, sit down and go to therapy. With her face like this, telling you that I'm not going to apologize, bitch. Never. But you, as my male partner, are sitting next to me. This man is calling me out of my name, telling me that he hates me and that I'm bitter, but he loves you, and you just sit there with nothing to say. This was a lost opportunity, I think, for Sebenzile to show us that he's the partner that Boitshepo keeps praising him for being. But maybe what you are, Sebenzile, is that you're not quiet and calm. Maybe you're just avoidant. Kiye, Jay-Z, Beyonce. This is it. Here we go. This is what it looks like. Rabata perfect. All I need in this life for sin is me and my boyfriend. Gimo. You see, this is another situation for me here where accountability is not being taken. It's people are doing things outside. I just have this open portal. Question mark. What is that? You know what? Maybe Zulu people are right and English is a problem sometimes. Because this sugarcoating, this use of euphemisms that then confuses us more without calling a thing is a problem. What's an open portal? If this is the ideal of a good man that we as the women in the comment section of YouTube are holding up on a pedestal, we've got a lot of work to do. Tammy flies into a rage and yet another monologue, diatribe. Boitshepo was just like Unale Siviti and like Boitshepo girl, I am with you when you're right, because Tammy unesivindi, guys. Enamafuta eceleni. What? Video quality for shit. Network for shit. It was a mess. A mess. I.e. Anele just called you a megalomaniac on television. A raging, self-obsessed egomaniac who thinks the sun is just shining out of every orifice. Oh, wait, guys, I don't even want to lie. Like, in this review, guys. Yeah! Parents will be proud. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rakhadi's Views, where I give you my views on reality. And this is me, Rakhadi Watona. I welcome you all to our review of the final episode of Married at First Sight Mzansi. Episode 14, the real reunion. Guys, now I've got my cup of tea. Go and pour yourself a cup or a glass of, because Nediwo, yeah, in this episode, Lord have mercy. And I'm going to tell you up front, there's going to be a long review because we're going into the detail. I mean, this episode alone was 1 hour and 30 minutes. I have like pages of notes because just when you thought it wasn't Guningi, it became Guningi. Yeah. So much was happening. My Lord. So get comfortable. Get yourself strapped in. Welcome to the family. Basically, I said I'm going to stop saying family. Dysfunction. Welcome to the community. If this is your first time, welcome to Rakadi's View. Rakadi wa amogela. And hopefully so does everybody else. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back, guys. And if you are a returning viewer, guys, please subscribe because ke a bona gore there's lots of people watching, but like not everybody's subscribing. We are trying to get Rakadi some coins, some rondellas, di rantanyana for Rakadi, it's extra. So please subscribe if you haven't yet, because yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people are viewing, not a lot of subscribers. We are on our way slowly to 100 subscribers, guys. Thank you to each and every one of you who have subscribed. I'm so grateful. You know, this started out as just a creative project. It still is, and an outlet for me. But yeah, please subscribe. Rahadi needs some coins because content creation, yeah, go YouTube, guys, actually takes a lot of time. A lot more than I thought it would. I'm still enjoying it, but like, ish, editing by itself is a lot. But I'm happy to do it, and I'm really happy to hear from you guys. You know, I love to hear what you think and your thoughts and your comments. So just get strapped in, guys. It's a ride. But hallelujah, we are at the end of this show because I could not. I think if they had done this into two parts, to be serious and to be honest, I don't know if I'd give you guys the part two. I don't know if I'd actually watch that. But I'm happy, even if they shoved it all in an hour and 30 minutes, we can live with that. So, a couple of things about this reunion episode that, number one, got like budget fedile. Okay, because this reunion, we're coming back, it's 9 months after filming. So, I think the participants have also been watching the show, some of the episodes along with us. Budget fedile because, no, location for the shoot was just, it was looking like we went to like a friend of a friend who owns like an office building, and we were like, just like, my homie, can we just shoot in like the welcome reception or the welcome hall, like the just, you know, I was praising the people who did the set design throughout, particularly the weddings. But like, gotta you spent all the money there, little plate and big bay, because things were just not matching. And I know matching is not a theme. I'm not a designer, but it was so mismatched. And there was a dining room table there. There's a red armchair, pity pity, and then throw cushions in some other types of patterns. So that is just my first critique. No, 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 no. The set was not looking like we had money for this. It was looking like we are scraping together some coins so that we can just hit lights, camera, action. Second, Tammy was not here because he's in Dubai. Fair enough. The technical setup for Tammy's video call literally was Tammy in front of his phone here, by the way, in the clip. He was here. I'm going to show you. It looked a mess. Video quality for shit. Network for shit. It was a mess. A mess. A mess. Nkare Tammy was there. Go to buy a Celsi network. I don't know what was going on. It was just a mess. It was just really not looking professional, guys. I think we could have set the technical side of things up a lot nicer. I've seen them do it on 90 Day Fiance, you know, where we drag in a nice flat screen in that office reception hall where they were shooting. There were two flat screen cameras on either wall there. Could have used one of them to just show us Tammy's face, because what you guys ended up showing us on our screens, and then Tammy was just, yeah, it was too much for me to handle. But yeah, no, we could have done better on that. So for me, technically, there were real problems here. And third, we have our reunion host, who's Ntombi Mzolo. So I'm familiar with her from some Moja Love show. I can't remember the name of that Moja Love show. Likunutu, yes. And she had a reality show with her family. I think she's doing some reunions as well. And like, girl, the one thing I'm going to say is that your makeup has improved. Guys, Ntombi's makeup was just drag queen adjacent. I don't know who was doing Mess. It was a mess. It was like she's supposed to be on a stage with all of the spotlights just blasting down on contour. And I came to body makeup, guys. All I put is a lipstick. Hot mess. But this time around, she looked great. It was muted. Wig was fantastic. But the I saw that was just stealing our attention from even the things that were being discussed was that dress that she had on. And woman to woman, I am not trying to tear you down. I'm trying to fix your crown because what you were giving us in this dress was upholstery realness. Even had the gold tassels on the arms that literally just looked like you went into some Tanny's old ass house and just ripped the curtains. This was like a Gone with the Wind moment. I don't know if people watch Gone with the Wind, the original. But Scarlett, there's no money and like times are hard. And so she's supposed to go to this ball where she must still look like, the rich Southern belle. And then her nanny, I think her name was Fannie Mae or something, nanny rips the curtains and then fashions this beautiful, gorgeous, like green velvet gown. This was not one of those moments. Putrid. Fire stylist. I don't know. Maybe if you're going to the Met Gala, you go New York. I'm not there, guys. But like, I'm getting sweaty. So let me just stop going in on this dress. But it was a mess. But I am happy that you are looking better with your makeup and your face. And you are a beautiful woman. Beautiful woman. With a beautiful body and a beautiful smile. This dress was a 0. Woo! I saw. Lastly, before we get into it with the blow by blows, I want to give a standing ovation and 5 stars to today's MVP of this episode. And the MVP award goes to Zitobile's face. Hey! Guys, I don't know. She's woken up from the coma and the stupor that she was in, and she was just giving us looks on looks on looks most of the time when Tammy was talking. I know, guys. That's what I say. Get strapped in. Let's get started. So the conversation starts with them discussing the couples, and the conversations that they had when they initially met at their weddings around hooking up on the first night. Zitobile says she knew from the jump that she was not giving it up to anybody on the first night. And like Tammy tried a little bit, but she made the excuse that she was tired and she turned and she went to bed. So Dee and Kuto, they slept separately. As we found out, Dee was very much like, I'm going to sleep in this room, i.e., when I go sleep somewhere else. And they did that. And Kuto says then in the morning, he just feels this body and these hands and these legs in the bed with him. And, Dee basically crept into his bed in the morning and they did the wild thing. Tabang and Kuma said they spoke for the first night. They weren't really interested in hooking up. Tabang said he did test the waters a little bit, but he got the hand slap because, guys, we were strangers, Sebenzile and Butepo said for them also, it was about getting to know each other and they talked a lot about it. Butepo makes a statement about how they were paired with the people that they needed and maybe not necessarily the people who met all of the requirements that they had on their list. And she said that, based on her past relationships, she's been in some very chaotic situations. And she was very intentional coming into this experiment that she didn't want to experience something like that again. So, she wanted to be in this marriage and she was asking herself a lot of questions about what does it mean to be a wife? And is she that person? And so for her, intentionality was just basically very big. And she made the comment that also, if men want to be married, they should also be asking themselves those questions about why they want to be husbands and what is it going to take for them to get to the place that they want to be, which is great. You all know, those who have watched Rakadi's views and have watched the reviews of Married at First Sight, this is something that I have also brought up as a talking point, because I don't think enough of us are thinking about those things and asking ourselves those questions and having honest conversations with ourselves about why we want to get married, and what kind of wife we need to be and what kind of husband we want to be. So I'm with Witepo on this page. There is, what I will say about Witepo, I think there was something that happened before filming of this show, because everything in her body language and her face was saying, I would rather be anywhere else in the world than sitting here on this couch filming what needs to be filmed. I think she was there out of contractual obligation. I don't know what happened. Or she had a fight, or it was something with the other people, or it was things that she came from home with. But baby girl was pissed. That is the energy she was giving us throughout this reunion on that couch. And I think outside of that, as I said, Bitapo's response, she's talking about things that I also agree with. And, we have the same thinking in that way, but there's still something about her for me that's just off. Like, it's off. I think a lot of the times it's her words not always feeling like they're aligning with her energy and her body language. And so I don't know which part to believe, because out of your words, you're saying, like out of your mouth, you're saying all of the right things, but your body and your energy and your body language is not aligned with the things that are coming out of your mouth. And I think that continued throughout this reunion. Guys, I don't know what it is. If somebody else knows, or if you have some thoughts, but there's something that we say, but I don't know. Anyway, the experts are there. It's Dr. Zenda, and thank God Anele was back for this episode. Hi, Anele. Welcome. We are so happy to have you here. These dogs. Hey! Guys, sorry about that. You know how it goes. These dogs are just, I think, kitty background members of Rakadi's views, but and they're not even mine, but like, here we are. But we are happy Adele is back. Adele was, interjecting where he needed to interject, offering the wisdom that we needed to hear. I am so happy that he's here. So Ubake and Nogwande were not there. I don't know why. But, they got 2 out of the 4. Then we start off by asking, so it's Dee and Kuto, the first couple. They ask Kuto if he's paid lobola, and he's like, no, he hasn't done that yet. For now, they're actually not even living together. Then Dee says no, and then she's still studying. She's got 2 more years until she gets her degree. So for her, she doesn't want lobola. She doesn't want she doesn't want to be having another baby. She doesn't want to be moving in. Like, she just wants to focus on her studies. So all of these things are going to have to wait until she's done, which is in another 2 years. And then Untombi asks her about, the issue of her co-parent and everything that was happening in Harties. It's such a long story. I'm not going to hash it again. I'm not going to rehash this with you guys. The only new information I think that came out in what they were discussing was that, Kuzo said that for him, he feels that, they've had a discussion with Dee, and he's just asked her to have firmer boundaries with regard to her co-parent, and he has also come to the realization that he also just needs to compromise in terms of what his expectations are around how Dee manages that co-parenting relationship. But Dee has still not met Kuzo's co-parent, and Dee was like, I'm gonna wait for Kuzo, he must take the lead. So when he must facilitate that, when he's ready for me to meet this person, he must arrange it, and I will meet her. I'd like to meet her. But I'm happy. Dee's like, let me not get into things that don't involve me. And good for you, girl. Stay away. And Kuto's also like, listen, like, my co-parent is not really interested in who I'm dating. She's not interested in who I'm married to. So that's not really a conversation that they have either. And he gave an example that he saw his daughter this past weekend, and Dee was not there for that. So, in terms of his daughter and Dee also having interactions, it doesn't seem like they have a lot of them. Which I don't know. For me, it's still a relatively new ish relationship. I mean, here we are around 9 months. But, I think we can't really judge how people are managing timelines around certain things when there's children who are involved. And in particular, we don't know the status of Dee's relationship with her co-parent and Kuto's relationship with his co-parent, how things ended, why things are the way that they are. Dee and Kuto will sort that out in the privacy of their own homes. I don't think we need to really go into too much detail with that. And particularly for me, because there's a certain sensitivity, around the children that I think we need to respect. So Kuto says that blow up that they had over this threesome comment. For him, it really helped him to understand D a lot more. This is obviously in retrospect because when it was happening, nehole tense, nehole rough. But it helped him to understand D more, and they were able to get through a lot of tough conversations. Which brought, I think, an intimacy and a closeness in their relationship, which he says he can now appreciate. Then, Ntombi makes a comment about Buitepo in that same moment. Well, it's a flashback to when they were in that apartment, and Buitepo had made the comment that she would marry or fuck Kuto. Um, and she was saying Untombi that Untombi called Buitepo out and said that was actually a very spicy comment to make. Based on the fact that, like, I think Dee was already losing her mind. And Buitepo was like, listen, I mean, in terms of the type of guys that I used to go for, and that were usually my type, Kuzo is a replica of those people. So it made sense to me, but it doesn't mean that I am attracted to this person and that I want to do those things right now. As she keeps reminding us, Seven is her scorer. Seven is the only one that she wants. She would never. Um, but what I did pick up, I think, Buitepo's got this element of nice nasty, where she responds and she's very logical and she's very practical in how she's responding to you and she's giving you the facts as they are. Wabana, she's the opposite of D. She's not twisting what she's hearing and pulling it from another reality. Um, but the nice nasty, I think, is because of this misalignment from the words that are coming out of her mouth with her body language and her energy. Because even as she was saying all of this, about that threesome comment that she made, that, for her, she was being asked a direct question and she was answering. They had asked her specifically outside of her current partner, who Sebenzile, who would she pick? So she's giving you the facts that this was the question, these were the exceptions that I was given, these were the options, and this is what I selected. Very logical, very rational, but your energy is not matching up. And they give a nice nasty. For me, I would have appreciated if she did actually say, yeah, Dee, I was actually trying to shogoloza you a bit because I could see you were on the edge and maybe I wanted to be entertained. I can respect that. But there's a part of it that's just, this, I was just answering questions and just giving what people, your true feelings, I think, sometimes are not always expressed there. Hey, Buitepo. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys tell me. Anyway, Dombi asks about the beef between, D and Buitepo. And D was like, there really is no beef. And I believe D when she's saying this. She's just like, just because we are in the same experiment and we're in the same environment with somebody doesn't mean that we're automatically going to click, we are working together. We're colleagues, essentially, because that's what they are. They're colleagues. And you don't get along with everybody, full stop, And D was like, I don't have any beef unless there's beef that I don't know about Libitepo, but I don't have a beef, and that's valid. Then Dombi asks, who was the person who actually asked this threesome question. Then Tabang interjects, and he's like, no, I want to clear something up. For the most part, everybody thought that I was the one who asked Tammy the question about him being bisexual. and everybody laughs. And he was like, it was not me, Tabang was even like, eventually, throughout the show, Tammy admitted that he himself asked him the question. And then Tommy was like, who asked the question? Was it really him? Zitomila points to Tammy on the screen that it was Tammy. Then Tammy says out of his own mouth that yes, he asked the question to himself about being bisexual. Ntombi are question. Why would you do something like that? And thank God for Anele, who came in and let us know that it was projection. Spot on. For those who don't know project, I went Googlisha so that we can understand what Anele is saying. But projection is a type of psychological defense mechanism in which a person consciously or unconsciously attributes their own thoughts, feelings, or traits onto another person or group. And for those who can engage their brains and think, you know exactly what Anele was saying when he said projection. And I'm going to leave it there. Then everybody else is still saying, no, wasn't me, wasn't me, wasn't me. D then says, in terms of who asked the threesome question, D says, I think it was production. Dombi then says, no, it couldn't be production. That's completely against the rules. They would never do that. Sorry to tell you, Dombi, I don't believe you. Of course it was production. Of course. Motswako, spies. I mean, they go through these people's questions and they're seeing that clearly, besides Tammy, people are asking some boring ass questions. And how else are we going to spice it? How else are we going to get it started? We need to be recording fireworks for the television. So for me, I don't believe that because I don't know, maybe Ntombi, unless it's your production company and you're involved somewhere in the background, in the scenes. I don't know how you can be speaking up for production like that and saying that they didn't. I don't know. Allegedly. Anyway, we go to the next segment. We start with Zitobile. And Dombi, points out that Zitobile, you're looking quite emotional. Is everything okay? What's wrong? Hi, there's Zitobile starts crying. Says she feels very overwhelmed by everything that's going on. Then she reveals that she's been watching some of the episodes at home and just seeing herself and her interaction, and she's crying because she's like, clearly nobody heard me. When I was listing my list of requirements and what I was looking for, nobody was listening to me. And I think it was becoming evident to her because clearly now she's also seeing Tammy in his diary sessions and Tammy being Tammy in the way that he really was, And then she expresses that she feels that she was matched up with this person for ratings. Kari, yes, girl, finally, good for you. The penny dropped. Yes. She says she was matched up with him for ratings. And that they wanted some fireworks at her expense. So, she kind of woke up and smelled the coffee. And then Anela steps in and he's like, no, I want to assure you that, we were being as ethical and as professional as we could be in terms of how we were selecting people, and that they, as the experts, were only seeing the profiles on paper of the participants. Nagar. Question. What? You guys just literally flipped through people's written profiles, which I'm guessing they wrote themselves about them. This was basically Tinder on a bigger budget. What? And let it be a caution to anybody who wants to go on this show again next year. For me, unless they are going to change the processes and how they are doing things. How did we not even do, I can understand, I don't know how many applications they got, but once you shortlisted people, how are you not doing one-on-one interviews with the experts? clearly then there's no psychological assessments that are also being done. So y'all could literally let people with deep seated real psychological issues onto this show, which for me Tammy is bordering on. I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing him, but his behaviors. Y'all are really just exposing people, and I don't know if the PR spin of that is that, well, we wanted to sort of mimic, what's going on in the real world and the types of things that people will encounter. But I think we are underestimating the impact of our society and social media and the need for centering self above everything else. I think we're underestimating the impact that that has had on people's psyches, because I think there are a lot of people out here who are adopting narcissistic personalities as a way to adapt to the environment of the matrix. And there are a lot of people with a lot of things that are going on inside of them. You guys just literally read people's profiles, and that's what you use to match them up. That was very telling for me and very problematic. Wabona, that's why we had budget for the Plettenberg Bay, so, and budget for cinematography and directing and lights. It was beautiful. Where was the budget to be paying these experts their daily rates to at least sit down and interview 6 to 8 people a day, so that they would have had a conversation and asked them important questions to make sure that we are not going to be causing people to have psychological breakdowns on television? I was shocked by that. I was really shocked. Dr. Zenda says, as experts, they did the best that they could and that they've learned some lessons. I hope y'all really have. And I'm not necessarily putting the blame at the experts' feet, because they are also hired guns. They are consulting here. They are hired by production to come and do what they want to do, and probably given a scope of work and probably given the boundaries and the frameworks within which they need to operate. But for me, at this point in time, it is evident that looking at people's profiles on paper with no interaction, with no psychological assessments that are being done by the experts is a problem. Then, Ntombi comes in and, asks a valid question, and makes a valid observation that, like, listen, Ntombi, everybody is also accountable for their own decisions, so, i.e., you weren't just a victim here, you were also making choices. So why did you decide to then recommit to this person at the ceremony? And Uzitubile says, she's had a pattern of these short-term relationships that, are very short-lived. And she's also got the pattern, of cutting people off and ending things very quickly. And so she was starting to doubt herself and ask herself, is it me? I'm the common denominator in these things. So am I cutting people off before I've given them a chance? Maybe I'm saying there's too many red flags, but maybe there is potential for me to see things through. And so now that she was with Tammy and she's in her head, she's thinking, well, I'm married. The word married has a connotation of higher levels of commitment. And so what she was doing was she talked herself into just giving him more chances to see if there was potential for him to improve and if Tammy was going to show improve and change. Which I think I can understand. I can understand. When someone is in that mode of self-reflection, the way that I explain it sometimes to clients as well that I see, it's a pendulum swing when we are looking at our patterns of behavior and wanting to change them. That once the awareness hits and you become aware of a certain type of behavior or a certain pattern of behavior, a lot of the time our first instinct, because we are either repelled by our behavior and we can't believe that this is actually what we've been doing now that we've got the awareness, we want to immediately pivot and switch it. And that pivot and that pushing away from that behavior then leads sometimes to us swinging to the extreme side of the pendulum. And so pivoting and changing our behavior actually just becomes a process of the pendulum swing that gets less and less and less extreme with each decision that we make and with each experience. And hopefully, at some point, we are hovering around the middle where we are not, flying from one side to the next. And so, unfortunately for Zitobile, I think her wanting to pivot away from her behavior of cutting people off led to her talking herself into being in relationship with this person who made her feel worthless for the most part of their relationship, who was unkind and who was mean. And I'm not saying that Zitobile is a victim, because Ntombi's right. There are choices and decisions that she was making. I wish her well. Then Tammy's response, they asked Tammy, okay, what's your response to what Uzitobile is saying? Then he starts his diatribe with Tina as Abazulu. This is quite Tammy, because I don't think it's all Zulu people, who exhibit the characteristics that you do. There might be some shared beliefs within this group of people, but nah. From the way I see it, I think you're doing the tribe a disservice, because the words out of his mouth was he expects his wife to do absolutely everything for him, and he sees nothing wrong with that. All he was doing was asking her to pour champagne. It's champagne. Why can't she just pour champagne? Why can't she just take off my robe? And you could see in Dombi's face, eyes were huge, because he wants to be dressed, he wants to be undressed, he wants to be served, he wants to be cooked for, he wants his bags to be packed and unpacked. And for him, his justification is because he's a Zulu man. No, babes, you're just a selfish person. That's it. That's it. And entitled. That's it. I think leave the Zulus out of it. So then Tammy says, even asking her to do all of those things for him, he was testing her. No, babes, you were not testing her when you were asking her to do all of those things. You were grooming her. You were grooming her and laying down the law as to what you expect a good wife to be doing. And if she wasn't going to do any of these things, you were going to tell your mother. You were going to tell your mommy and make sure that mommy knows that Zitobile doesn't want to pack my bags. And she's such a bad wife. As you can tell, I've been done with Tammy for a while, but like today, namhlanje. Guys, before ke reva, I must not be raving so hard. And then Tammy continues a monologue that was just worthy of a Moja Love reality TV show. So that's where this clip should have been inserted. Now we are hearing the story about Tammy was in an accident. He was in a coma for 5 months. It was hectic. He was staying at Zitobile's family's house, and they were nice to him. Bosbari were nice. Her mother was nice, but she was not nice. Zitobile, as soon as he woke up, she's now asking him for sex, and he's like, how can you be asking me for sex when I'm recovering and I'm recuperating? I can't be thinking about those things, Plus, you never wanted them anyway. Now you're telling me that you want them, but I'm ailing and I'm recovering. And Zitobile kicked him out of the house while he was sick and he was ailing. He could have been an invalid from that accident. Doesn't she know? Zitobile's face. Now, at this point, we haven't heard Zitobile's rebuttal, but just the way Tammy was telling the stories, I'm not saying all of those things didn't happen. And we find out that, yes, factually, he was in an accident and he was in a coma. Zitobile comes to tell us that actually, Tammy was only in the hospital for 2 months. He was in a coma for 1 month, not the 5 months that he's talking about. Tammy exaggerates. Then Zitobile tells us that While he was in that hospital for 2 months, she's like, I'm surprised that Tammy is telling the story the way that he's telling it, because clearly he's picking and choosing which parts of the story to remember. Sitobile then proceeds to tell us that Tammy was in a hospital, go with bank, for 2 months. She was working for Randfontein again. Every weekend, she would drive from Randfontein to Witbank. Guys, wait, I should have Googled the number of kilometers. Just from Joburg to Randfontein. Randfontein ke kgole, guys. Now, from Randfontein all the way to Witbank. But she went. She was being a supportive, dutiful wife. She went there to go and see him. And so his whole family was in KZN, and so she's thinking, what's going to happen? We can't just leave this person here. And then he says that Tammy was then staying at her mother's house. And Tammy was being taken care of by Zitobile's mother and Zitobile's sister, because Zitobile is in Randfontein Monday to Friday. And so she'd come back to her mother's house for the weekend on Friday, which is now the time that she's got to be taking care of this person. Bamujisa, making meals, bamutlatsa di washing, bamutlatsa di underpen. And when she comes back, he's got no time for her. He's on the phone up until 10 at night. He's busy making plans with his friends to be going out, to be doing this. Pants pezulu. There's no time for her. And she's like, I wasn't even asking him for sex. I'm asking you to make time to spend with me while you are living in my mother's house. Buitepo was just like, Unale Siviti, and like, Buitepo girl, I am with you when you're right, because Tammy unesivindi, guys. Enamafuta eceleni. What? In a lot of the comments, I watched those little clips on YouTube that like Mzansi will release about what's coming up next, go, Married at First Sight. And there were so many comments. I've made this comment before from women calling Uzitobile isqefe. Guys, if there's anybody calling isqefe on this show, it is this man. This man. Buitepo says he's fucked up in the mind. And she says the problem is that Tammy was always praised by his family. And that he's a breadwinner. Arbu breadwinner bo has gone to his head, and it's a problem. Yes, Buitepo. Yes. Would have like called the things, girl. Because they are the things right here. And this highlights, I think, another theme that we need to discuss in our communities and in our families. Because this thing of men who are the breadwinners, who are the ntsigas in their homes and extended homes, can sometimes be problematic. Now, I'm not saying all of you men, I'm not saying it's always problematic, because unfortunately for a lot of us in the Black African community, that is the way of life. That maybe one or by two but in the family, and then it's a responsibility that you take on to pull everybody else up. But what is now becoming a trend as our morals just depreciate and decay as a society is that you have some men who are walking around as these breadwinners, who will then be doing all the things that they want to do. Amanyala, left, right, and center, nonsense. And nobody in the family is ever going to call this person out on their behavior, because of the fact that we are now thinking with our stomachs. Or if we tell Tabiso, you are out of line or wrong, Kadi 1, 2, 3, Tabiso is going to stop sending money home. So all we need to tell Tabiso is what a wonderful person he is, and what a wonderful man he is, and how Tabiso can do no wrong, and how he's so loved, and every step of the way he's just God's gift to all women, and he can do no wrong because Tabiso's number one. This is what Bitsapo's talking about when she says Gibu breadwinner. This is the behavior. There's no boundaries. There's no consequences. Nobody. Even if they wanted to, they might talk about you behind your back. So did you see him coming in? Even this comedian, what's his name, Mavusana, on Instagram. If you haven't seen him, check him out. He's got some hilarious skits about breadwinners and the types of conversations they be having in family meetings. Kids on, I'd say, kids are more time. Just because I'm a breadwinner, I can be out here trash ass behavior. But nobody's going to tell me anything because they're thinking with their stomachs. And if that is the case, and if you are that person, maybe ask yourself, as the man who's the breadwinner here, are you having genuine and authentic relationships with your family members? When was the last time somebody in your family gave you feedback that was honest about some bad behavior that you've been exhibiting? When was the last time? Because if you cannot remember the last time somebody close to you who is dependent on you financially was not able to tell you the truth, you might be the problem. Just saying, let's move on. So Tammy's response to all of this that's being said, he says he didn't hear anybody's response. He didn't hear Uzitobile and he didn't hear Buitepo reading him on his breadwinner-like behavior due to technical difficulties. These difficulties holding us back. But, Ntombi reiterates it. Then Tammy gets upset and he's like, what does Buitepo know about my breadwinner status? What's wrong with being a breadwinner? What does that have to do with anything? Does she think I want to be a breadwinner? But obviously, I think those comments and that fight is an easier fight for him to have with Buitepo than to actually engage in a conversation on the inflated size of his liver. To be doing what he was doing in Zitobile's mother's house while they were taking care of him. That he doesn't want to engage with. But yes, he can have a fight with Buitepo about how can she comment on me being a breadwinner. Fine. Zitobile says Anna, she took off her ring at her mother's house when all of this stuff was going down. And for her, it's over. She doesn't want him anymore. Tammy says it's the same for him. Ever since she kicked him out of his mother's house, it was over, but he still has the ring on and he's not going to give it back. And he's in Dubai with this wedding ring on. Why? Still on his left hand. For what? Because where is the signed marriage certificate that makes you so attached to being married? Or was it just the idea of marriage? I could say that he's got in his head. So Zutuli is like, no, babes, I'm done. Your love bake, Tammy, is denied. Then Tammy's like, okay, thank you. Then Untombi also like, no, Zutuli, like, we didn't really get into whether you and Tammy were together before the accident. Like, was it lovey-dovey? What was happening? We know that, like, yes, after he was in your mother's house, things went left and then you wanted to kick him out. But what had happened? Then Zitobile was like, listen, Tammy got into the accident on his way back from KZN to Joburg. I think maybe it might have happened on the closer side around Witbank, Mpumalanga, I think. Then Zitobile is like, I didn't say Tammy must stay. My mother and Tammy's mother had a conversation on the phone. And Tammy's mother was very anxious about him, number one, being far away from the rest of the family in KZN while he's recovering, and this has just happened. But number two, Tammy had a close friend who was a guy, and the mother was like, she doesn't think that the guy can take care of Tammy the way that he needs to be. And he's going to need a woman's touch. So then Zitobile's mother and Tammy's mother agreed that Tammy would then go stay at Zitobile's mother's place, because Zitobile said her mother asked her, what is she going to do? And Zitobile was like, babes, me, I don't know. Now I'm in Randfontein Monday to Friday. So I don't know what I can be doing for this situation. And so the mother was like, fine, let me take him on. She's being a good Mama Zala high five to Zitobile's mother. She was really trying. So because he needed a woman to nurse him back to health, Zitobile's mother and Zitobile's sister were then nursing him Monday to Friday. Zitobile would nurse Utomi Utami on Saturdays and Sundays. And then Tobile was like, obviously, come back. There's this distance. There's him on the phone, and she'd ask him, does he still want to be in this relationship? And Tammy was honest that, like, I can't answer that question because, he's not himself after the accident. And Uzi Tobile was like, I can even admit that. He wasn't himself, but only when he started, coming back into himself, that's where she was asking these kinds of questions. Um, and so she says they even had a family meeting with Utami's mother and the sister and some other family members, around what her role is here because she's also very overwhelmed. This is not what she signed up for. She didn't sign up to be like a caregiver for this severely injured man. This is not the type of relationship that she was trying to have, and she's just very overwhelmed, and so she doesn't know what role she must take on. He's also saying he doesn't know, he can't make any decisions, and so the family was like, no, just be his friend. And then she was like, cool. Told Tammy, I'm also going to be your friend because when you also don't know where we stand. Took off the wedding ring and she played the role of friend, which slight cop outs, Tobile, because in this whole story, you're telling us what was said by other people, but where did you actually make a decision? Because you're making it seem like other people decided for you. You were sort of put in a corner. People were telling you what you should do, and so you just followed those instructions. You were also making decisions. That's why I like, don't be asking this. And I think maybe that's something you need to take into your life is understanding that yes, certain situations are happening and people are giving you their opinions and telling you what they think you should and shouldn't do. But not making a decision is still making a decision. You just get to tell yourself that you didn't actively and what's the word? Explicitly make a decision. But not making a decision is still a decision. And this story, the way that you're positioning yourself is that I didn't make these decisions. I asked him, he said. I asked the family, they said. Where are you in all of this? Where is your agency in what's happening here? Anyway, she said when Tabby was seemingly getting better and he was back to himself and he was on his phone and making plans with friends and all the other stuff, then she came back to him and she was like, listen, Tammy, I can see that you are moving on with your life. You're making plans. There he's making plans to build a house, to do a whole bunch of other things. And she's like, those plans don't seem to factor me into it. So, seeing as you're moving on, maybe it's better that you go to your cousin's place in Joburg. And that's what it was. So that was Tammy. His interpretation was that was Tobile kicking him out. And then Tammy's like, he suffered a very severe brain trauma in the accident. So he doesn't really remember a lot of what was going on. And I'm going to give him that credit. I'm not just going to step on his neck at any chance that I get. I believe him there. Zutobile's response to that was, though, how can you say you've suffered a severe brain trauma and that you weren't all together there? But there you are on the phone making plans to build a house and transferring monies around and, getting a project off the ground. Rare question mark. Then Tammy arjigela into a Jekyll and Hyde. And he then says, well, now that Zitobile is talking about all of these things, the memories are coming back to him now and he's remembering how good he had it and how Zitobile took care of him so well, and now he's really realizing that like he's lost somebody very good. And in the same way that God has spared his life and given him another chance, he also wants to use that chance for something good. And so he's asking for ama love back from Uzitobile. Mama wasekaya, come back home. The home is cold without you. I'm going to lobola you now and I'm going to do the right thing by you. Please come back. Then Ntombi saved us all from having to ask another question. Because Ntombi was like, so you want Abba love back? And he's like, yes, I finally remembered all of this. And she's like, did you remember all of this during the commercial break? Because before the break, you were saying other things. You were saying that you were fine with her leaving. And you said, thank you. You said the marriage was also over for you. from the time you were kicked out of a mother's house. So what's going on? I'm tired of talking about these two. Zitobile denies the love back. She says she doesn't want him and she wishes him well. Tammy then also wishes her well, and he hopes that God, excuse me, helps her to find somebody who will treat her opposite to what he treated her, which at least we thank you for your insight at the end with Tammy. Through, as Amakosa say, true, with Tammy. So, Sebenzile Mbitepo and Dombi asks them that, everybody says you guys are the perfect couple. Then they show some tweets on the screen as well. And how do they feel about that? Because Ntombi was like, you guys didn't seem to also fight unless that was happening off screen. Careers, Ntombi. She was actually, you know what? She was a good host. I'll give it to her. Just the atrocious stress, but she was a good host. She was asking the questions that we wanted asked, and she was digging in deeper. I think that there were times where she was a dog with a bone. That's what we needed to reiterate and to just go in and just get to the point of the questions. So she asked him, she was like, well, did you have fights off screen that maybe we didn't see? Sevenzile is like, listen, I'm not going to change who I am just because I'm on screen now. I'm not the type of person to be screaming and shouting, in the middle of the street and just causing drama and chaos. That's not where I'm from. Buitepo also talks about that, in her past relationships, she came from a place of chaos and that's not what she wanted anymore. So she was very intentional that this time she's going to use her 2 ears to listen and her 1 mouth to speak. So for them, they were also in the honeymoon phase and things were good and they were in a little bubble, in this show while they're in the apartment. And Butepo makes a comment about how, like, no, they were in the honeymoon phase and things are now real. She doesn't elaborate on the real that it is right now. But later on, we also find out that they relocated, Sevenzile and Butepo have relocated down to Cape Town. And woo! If there's anything more stressful in life, it's packing up, moving, and relocating. So I can just imagine the flames maybe that are coming out from that of having to do it with another person while you're still getting to know them, while you're still starting a new life, and I assume while they both are starting new jobs there as well. So there's a lot happening. Buitepo says she still doesn't understand why Usebenzile has feelings for his ex. And for her, if you have feelings for an ex, why are you still here? We beat this dead horse again. Sebenzile essentially says that it's not that he has feelings for her, but he's only had one long-term relationship outside of a relationship with her. Number one. So that is the blueprint for him in terms of how he moves and operates within a relationship. The things that he took from there, certain lessons and mistakes that he made that are now informing how he's showing up in this relationship. And so because the past relationship with that ex has had an impact on him and the person that he is now, there is still meaning that he attaches to that. And he's trying to explain it, then he says English is the problem. Dombi's like, no, Kulimang is Zulu, and he's like, no, doesn't want to speak in Zulu, and we're just going back and forth. And I like that Anele then stepped in here and he was like, listen, Sebenzile can explain himself and I can see he's trying, but like Butepo is just, she's hard. It's not landing his explanation and it's not going to land cognitively. And Anele, I think, positioned this really nicely just for all of us to know that there are certain issues that as a couple might never actually get resolved in terms of we're both on the same page. We can still hold two different viewpoints and carry on and have a healthy relationship. Maybe he said with therapy, this is something that they could work through. But it's not that you're going to see eye to eye on every single issue and that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you are in a bad relationship. And, that being said, I remember listening to an interview that was done by the Gottmans, who are these two relationship therapists. And they've written quite a few books about, relationships and how to sustain them. And the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of relationships, all of that stuff. You guys can Google it if you want to see it. But they've done research for a couple of decades on relationships and couples. And one thing that they revealed that I found was very interesting, and maybe it can also just set us all free. They said that 67% of arguments that couples will have will actually never get resolved. So, what they were saying is that sometimes, if resolution is your definition of success, resolution of problems, meaning we see eye to eye and we get onto the same page of 100% of the issues that we're going to have, you are going to have a problem in your relationship, because that's the wrong metric to be using, because already more than 50% of the arguments will never be resolved, and perhaps what we should be aiming for is repair after the rupture, and an understanding that, okay, you see things this way, I see them this way, and we might not ever get to the same page, but in the bigger scheme of things, what we disagree on is not a fundamental value or a fundamental issue in terms of how we relate to each other and who we be to each other. But very interesting. Okay, moving on from them, then we have Tabang and Makumo. Makumo says, oh, the other thing I also just wanted to note. Sebenzile and Boitshepo, the body language also in this episode is speaking a lot. That 97% of communication, yeah, body language. No hand holding, no covering, no snuggling. We're not even facing each other. They're still facing straight ahead, slightly apart. Question mark. There, I still maintain I have a question mark with those two. That something else is going, I can feel it. And I'm not saying it's this big, bad, evil monster. But once again, the words that you guys are saying and the energy and the body language are not aligning. That's all. Tawang and Makumo, Makumo says they got along fine, but, Vele Vele in the beginning, she wasn't really in love with him. She only really started to develop feelings for Tabang after the experiment. So remember, they ended living together in those apartments, and then production got all of the couples another apartment that they could stay in for 2 weeks before the recommitment ceremony. But there were no cameras there. It was just them living together. And so Makumo said at that point, she also coincidentally happened to be on leave because her work schedule was all over the show. So they weren't spending time together. So for that 2 weeks, then they were able to actually live together, see each other every day, really get to know each other and build that sort of connection. And Utabang was also working from home a lot of the time. So that really gave them time. So she says, before that 2 week period, her decision would have been to not recommit. But because they had that time spent together, she came to this recommitment ceremony feeling that she had these feelings of love. Was it the rare true love that she was quoting in her vows? I'm still not convinced. In 2 weeks. But yes, could she have developed deeper feelings for him and that there was love? Yes. Eternal soulmate. I could say. Anyway, so after that 2 weeks, she's like, no, there's feelings, something is building here. I love this person. So let me give it a chance and let me let my guard down. So Tabang, for him, he said he was in from the beginning, but where he started to doubt things was after their trip to Harties, that couple's trip, and then Makuma had to go back to work again on the Sunday. So they all had breakfast together, and she was not there. And he started really asking himself the question of, is she like here, and is she immersed, and is she present? Can she be present for this? And he was starting to have doubts about that. So they go back then to one of the nights when the couples were together and they were doing the part 2 of Golden Envelope where Dee lost her mind. So they were asking Makumo about the statement, of what she regretted about being on the show. And she spoke about regretting her schedule wasn't being accommodated. And they play the clip again, and the clip ends, with Makumo telling Boitshepo that Boitshepo can have her feelings and she can have her thoughts, but that Makumo doesn't really care. Then in Tombi Arkel, like that statement was like wowzers to actually just be saying that to somebody's face that you don't care about their feelings. And if things had to be moved around to accommodate her, then so be it. I think that was the episode where everybody was just looking at Makumoka side eye engwe etanyang. Um, then Tombi asks her why did she answer like that, and before Makumo even said it out of her mouth, you could see on her face she still doesn't care. And Makumo's response to Tombi was, "I still don't care. She doesn't care. Doesn't care at them. Doesn't." And in that moment, I actually noticed her face because I remember her mother. I remember her mother from the time when she was telling her mother for the first time that she was married to a stranger. And her mother also pulled the same face that Makuma has on. I think there's a lot that she has inherited from her mother by the way of facial expressions and by the way of energy and by the way of barbed wire, danger, khefar, tread carefully. Um, so Makuma explains that like what had happened was before they shot part two of the Golden Envelope, the ladies were downstairs in the quad area and the ladies were having a conversation, around the one person, who was making people's lives difficult, and she was getting princess treatment because they always have to be moving their schedules around. So Makumo says that was the first time she heard about this with the ladies together. And she said she apologized there in the quad for having, their schedules to be messed up like this. So for Kumo, that conversation happened, and then they went upstairs and they shot then part two, Golden Envelope. And then Kumo's being asked these questions about what she regrets. And Kumo's like, what upset her is that why is Buitepo now bringing a conversation that they had off camera in the quad into this conversation with the cameras rolling? Because I think it's very evident that Makumo is a private person who likes her things in private, i.e., don't ever go on television again then, please. If you know you're that person. It's okay to be that person. We don't all want our things in the streets. Why were you here? And so Makuma's like, why are you bringing this conversation from off the streets into the streets and into the lights and the camera and the actions? And Makuma said, she doesn't know if Butepo was trying to embarrass her, but she also doesn't appreciate the word selfish that Butepo was using, and that's what triggered her. Then she tells us, as for me, now I go to work at the airport. She doesn't work there anymore, but she goes to the airport and she's on her feet 9 hours straight. And then she has to come back and film this show and she has to be present. She can't be tired. And then she has to be giving energy to her husband, and then now she must be giving energy also to other people. Basically, I didn't come here to make friends. I came here to find love and to find a husband. I'm hearing all of that. But you are not the only person who's on this show who's got a job. Like, this is just the struggle of adulting that, like, most people are going through. That you are pulled in 5,000 different directions, and those things are not going to end, just because the camera's cut off. And also, the context of your life is important to explain to people, but it doesn't justify bad behavior. It doesn't, because you're not the only person who's cornered the market on having a lot of obligations to meet in a 24-hour cycle. All of us. All of. And then Makumu even makes the comment, or, maybe people might even be asking themselves, why did I come to a reality TV show? She said she was looking for love. My question is also just that, you know what? We're going to beat this like it's a dead horse. Just a note for anybody else who wants to go on reality TV. Like, that's much I love Wabawona guys there. Most of those people, that's why they've got time to be mingling and single on a Thursday afternoon, which is fine because then they can shoot the content. But if you're going to be making a commitment like this to come to a show like this, it does actually require a lot of you. I mean, I've heard so many stories, I think even in the US and all over, that some people will even quit their jobs just to go on Survivor, because Survivor says we need 3 months of your time. Person gets eliminated, day 4. It's rough. So These are not easy decisions that people should be taking lightly about coming to TV. It's going to require a lot of your time, and especially if you feel a certain way about being in front of people, and having your business in the street, and you're going to want to be curating, how you show up and what you, that also takes a lot of energy. So, this is hopefully a lesson learned for her and for other people. Basically her and Butepo go back and forth. But Butepo's like, I didn't, if this apology that you talk about in the courtyard, if it happened, maybe my memory is bad, but I don't remember this. Then D says no, that she remembers that there was a conversation in the courtyard, and she does remember Kumo basically apologizing. But D says Kumo's not the person who's responsible for the schedules. It's production. So Kumo probably didn't even know that everybody else's schedules were being changed to accommodate her. And Dee makes a good point that Witepo, basically, your anger is misplaced because Kumo is not the person who's in charge of the schedules and probably didn't even know about that. Now, Dee says, but like maybe what Witepo's upset about is Kumo's response to Witepo calling her out as selfish on the day, and maybe her response was brattish and it was rude, which it was. And there it's like, okay, you can be upset about that. But about the schedules, girl, it's not her fault. Zitobile was also like, it was very, very frustrating with Kumo and her schedule. But, she's over it and she forgave Kumo a long time ago. Because also, number one, I think Zitobile is that type of person. But secondly, girl was going true, true it, okay, in her relationship. She had bigger problems to worry about. Um, so then Ntombi asks, well, how are we going to resolve it? Buitepo Kumo in true fashion. So she's not going to apologize again. She said what she said. And if Buitepo decides to move on from this, that's great. If she doesn't want to move on from this, that's also great. She can feel how she feels, and that's fine. I just don't think it's the most mature approach, but she's 25 years old, so perhaps this is what we can expect. Um, with Tepo, is also just like, nah, I'm cool, whatever. For me, I don't need her friendship, and I can't actually move past this. I mean, I don't know if it was that deep, but that's how Butepo's feeling, that it is that deep, and this is it, babes. When they say cut, I'm done with you today. Um, and then Anela steps in, and he says for him, as a psychologist, you can't just leave this situation like this because things are ruptured and two African black sisters, for the sisterhood, we can't leave it like this. There has to be some sort of repair, and he can understand, where Bitap was coming from in terms of, the respect issue, but let's see if we can repair it. Then they cut to commercial and we don't see any repairs. So, like, I feel like we were robbed a little bit there. I think there are things that happened after that that Anele maybe was trying to do an intervention. Araibona, it would have been nice to see. Um, for me, as I said, with Makuma, I think there is a lot of defensiveness and some emotional maturity around that. She can feel how she feels. I think I would have appreciated though if she could have just taken accountability that and just apologized for that response because for me it was very rude. Even if you were feeling the way that you're feeling, and then she doubles down that she's not going to apologize with her face like this, telling you that I'm not gonna apologize, bitch. Never. It's her choice. Ndombi asks them if they are still together. They are obviously still together. I could have told you that from the last review that I did. Their body language was very much, we're together, the bangers are banging. That's what that body language was giving us. So Tabang says he regrets his approach, on the day of the recommitment ceremony, and he probably shouldn't have confronted her the way that he did during the lights, camera action of it. Um, but I think there's a couple of possibilities here. Either Tabang was in on the production motswako of ratings, Gore, this is what I discovered, this is what I'm feeling. Ba mo pompa ba re, yeah, my guy. A re tse so. 1, 2, 3. Because for me, I still hold the belief that with most, if not everybody's vows at the recommitment ceremony, there was a copywriter, there was a producer somewhere in the background helping to flesh out some of these words and thoughts. So either Tabang was involved with the motswako of production, or Tabang was being dramatic, or Tabang really was very hurt by what he had discovered. And the way that he knew to hurt her back in a way that would cut her to the white meat was to slaza her on television the way that he did, because she is a private person and because she doesn't like her business in the street. This was him saying, I'ma show you. O batla ho nketsa Tom, o batla ho nketsa Barry. Let me do you too. I don't know. There might be other alternatives. If anybody thinks there's other alternatives, let me know. But yeah, it was feeling very much like a squinch moment. But yeah, so they're together. Tabang says what he's learned from this experience, which Ramoshapela Matsochen was so happy for him, is that he actually is a terrible communicator and that he does not necessarily communicate how he feels effectively to other people. And he keeps his feelings and his thoughts to himself to avoid confrontation. And I'm so glad that he's got that insight for him. And I hope, that's something that can create positive outcomes for him in his life and in his relationships in future. Because awareness is always a wonderful thing. Kumo says her ex is out of the picture, but she says he always was out of the picture, even in the beginning. But then she opened up a portal of possibilities. What is an open portal? Because she was talking about open portals. Or we're not together, but there was an open portal. Question, what? Open portal is giving entanglement. That for me is what is giving me, because you know what, maybe Zulu people are right and English is a problem sometimes, because this sugarcoating, this use of euphemisms that then confuses us more without calling a thing is a problem. What's an open portal? What is it, guys? Maybe now I haven't been like on these Tinder streets in years. What is that? The children who know the lingos, maybe I don't know the lingo of it, but it's giving entanglement, because I don't know what that means. I think it was just her way to obfuscate and deflect and not actually tell us what does that mean, an open portal. She spoke about how she doesn't block her exes, if things end like, generally okay and there's no acrimony, nobody blocks each other. We're not communicating, but like we're still open on the channels. Is that the open port? Help me. Then she says there were actually multiple open portals with multiple people. But she wants to tell us that these exes are out of the... What does that mean? Multiple open portals with... And then she's like, from those open portals, people were able to come in and do their own thing and make advances in the moments that she felt disconnected from Tabang. What? They just came in and did their things. Nobody opened the door for them. Nobody welcomed. Did they just waltz in by themselves through the open portals? You see, this is another situation for me here where accountability is not being taken. It's people are doing things outside. I just have this open portal. Question mark. What is that? But I just have this open portal. What people are going to do is up to them. There's nothing that I can do to stop them. There's nothing that I'm doing to encourage them walking through the portal in the moments when I'm feeling unloved or that I don't have attention and that I'm unconsidered by Tabang. Like, all I'm going to say is that I don't think this is the last time that Tabang and Kumo are going to be dealing with issues around accountability for certain behaviors. Because when I petty in here, when it comes to, you know, I was honest with him, but not all the way. Anyway, for now, she says they are together. She loves this man. He's the only one for her. All of the exes are out of the picture. You know, they had a heart to heart in that 2 week period when they were living together. And this, I believe, you know. And for her, she was like, you know, they had a very honest conversation about what her fears were. They had an honest conversation about what his fears were and, you know, how they were going to navigate it. And she says the only thing her grandmother left her with is prayer. And so all she can do is pray for the relationship. If they stay together, they do. If they don't stay together, then it wasn't meant to be. And, you know, they can move on. Um, but she says, yeah, so when did they get back together after that recommitment? And Dombi asks. And she's like, no, babes, like it wasn't even a day. She was like, while she was on her way out when shooting was over, you know, Tabang hollered at her. Um, they had, you know, back and forth conversations and arguments for about a week. And then after that, they were back together. So, like, forever yena, forever Tina, forever us. You know, he does have his flaws, but she would rather deal with him than with any other person. And so they are happy together. And I do wish them the best. As I said, I think they could teach each other a lot, as they are mirrors for one another. But studying with they'll just come with life and aging and experience and wisdom. The experts there, you know, Anela's like, this was a great case for seeing, you know, what happens when a relationship ruptures and how we can repair it. And so he's very happy that they've come to the repair state of things now that they can see it and it's evident. You know, and Anela also said, you know, he was very happy that, you know, Tabang has also sort of come to this realization about his avoidance of conflict and not expressing himself. You know, the way that he handled the recommitment ceremony and his speech could have been done better, but, you know, Kumo needed to see him angry. And I think he also needed to be angry because, you know, his true feelings and conflict is something that he usually deprives himself of. So it needed to happen so that he could sort of have this inner victory and have the awareness and then overcome it. And then Anela just, you know, teaches the nation that generally, you know, people who are happy clappy and, you know, always use humor in serious situations like Abu Tabang, just for people to note that that is usually a defense mechanism, which was great. Then Dr. Zenda said, you know, the pressure of the cameras and, you know, being in this secluded environment, you know, is not really the best environment that she can see for a relationship to flourish and to grow. And then we put these labels of marriage and husband and wife, and it can be a lot to have to deal with. So, you know, in her estimation, these two just needed to and, you know, have that pressure off and just have time for themselves away from the cameras. She's a big fan of them. They are her favorite couple. And so she's happy that they've gotten to this place of, I don't know, understanding and repair and just being in love, you know. And Kumo openly declaring it. So high five for them. And then Ntombi Plus Production decides to add some spice again and asks the question that now that they're at the end of things, if they had to choose another partner, who would they choose? Immediately, Kuto. At least Kuto. You learn, my brother. You learn your lessons. For that. Kuto's like, it's a trap. It's a scheme that Todd came up with to come with what? You know it. The bullshit. Okay. Kuta at first was like, it's a trap. I'm not answering it. But then eventually he says, no, he would have chosen Tobile. Tobile's? Zitobile. Zitobile's face.
I'd go with Zitobile.
Okay, so
she was confused and bewildered and slightly disgusted. I don't know why. Doesn't she know? She must ask D. Apparently the pipe is piping more lazy to be the girl. Anyway, D says she will still choose Kuto. Zitobile says she would have left the experiment if she had a chance to choose again. Tavi says he would choose Kumo because she can sing and dance. And Sebenzile says he would still choose Buitepo and Kumo would still choose Tabang. Then they ask all of the couples, who was the best and the worst pairing. Unanimous, unequivocal, the worst was Tammy and Uzitobile. Zitobile herself is just like, yes, obvious. We are the West. We all knew it. West. So, once again, Rakadi's concern for all of the women commenting, go the comment section, say YouTube, Tammy is a good man and he's trying his best. And can Zitobile stop being Istrefe? It's not blame that I'm going to lay at our feet, but perhaps an opportunity for reflection. Because I think clearly women, we've been through some things, and maybe this is an opportunity for us to reflect on what type of behavior we are normalizing for men. And why are we normalizing that? Maybe that's all we've seen. Maybe that's what we've experienced. Maybe that's what we grew up in. But I think it is the consensus, at least, from the two ex. Well, Dr. Zenda, we don't really get because I think her role is to be sitting on the fence when it comes to calling a thing and actually calling things out. But I think it is a consensus. I think from everybody watching, even the way that people were laughing and eyes were getting big when Utami was speaking, is that Tammy has a lot of problematic behavior. And so for those who would say he was trying, he was a good husband, he was a good man, Tammy himself, even when they ask him, he says that he was a very good husband. And if he was a woman, he would marry himself too. Who would want to lose a good man like him? If this is if this is the ideal of a good man that we as the women in the comment section of YouTube are holding up on a pedestal, we've got a lot of work to do. It's not just the men, it's also us who have the work to do. Because Tammy holds those thoughts and views because they are being reinforced by other people in his life somewhere. And that's a problem. Then the best couple, it was between D and Kuzo and the Bangers. Then we have Utami. While everyone's talking about best and worst, Tammy flies into a rage and yet another monologue, diatribe about Buitepo and how much he hates her as much as he loves Usebenzile. I think he's justifying why he wouldn't pick them as the best couple because he loves Usebenzile, but Buitepo is hateful and she's bitter on top of all of that. She could even kill him if she wanted to. He doesn't want her around. She's just not a person that he likes. He hates her. Hate, guys, quote unquote, was repeated very many times in Tammy's monologue. And this is what was very interesting for me. While Tammy was spewing that hate out of his mouth in this monologue, Sebenzile was silent. He didn't flinch. He didn't move. He didn't make a single comment. He just sat there, serving face in his mildly tinted sunglasses, while this man, Tammy, with 4 gold stars on his teeth, was talking about how much he hates his partner and that she's bitter and that he doesn't want her, and basically just kissing her on national television. Very interesting, because Buitepo also, I think, was just embarrassed, but said, girl, you're better than me. What? Cameras or no camera, Nikito Sheba Matlong. Once Tammy has finished saying all that he's saying and ask you to your face, are you really going to sit here in silence while this man trashes me all over the national television? You've got nothing to say. You've got nothing to say. Listen, the things that happen between two people, especially when you're in the heat of an argument, guys, it gets messy, it gets dirty. We all need to learn how to fight. That's another relationship skill, to fight with respect. But things sometimes get messy and we be calling each other everything else. And then we come back, rekopadi sorry, and then we do better so that we don't repeat this. That is one thing. But you, as my male partner, are sitting next to me. This man is calling me out of my name, telling me that he hates me and that I'm bitter, but he loves you, and you just sit there with nothing to say. If anything, this was the Will Smith moment that we needed of keep my goddamn wife's name out of your motherfucking mouth. This was the time for it. Sebenzile had none of that to give us. He was just saving face. Just saving face. Is this the princess treatment that you're telling us about, Boitsepo? I don't know. You know, we could say that maybe Sebenzile was in shock, Lena, and he went into fight, freeze, and then freeze it, because I think for a lot of men, freeze is actually the nervous system response for them a lot of the time. You can't freeze when another man is attacking me. What? This was a lost opportunity, I think, for Sebenzile to show us that he's the partner that Boitsepo keeps praising him for being. But maybe what you are, Sebenzile, is that you're not quiet and calm. Maybe you're just avoidant. Perhaps. And rona robona, only quiet, only sweet konyane, and we take it for that. Because I don't know how he sat in that chair with the cameras rolling and had nothing to say. Shocked. Kiye, Jay-Z, Beyonce. This is it. Here we go. This is what it looks like. Rabata perfect. All I need in this life for sin is me and my boyfriend. Gimo. Anyway, parting comments from the experts. Dr. Zainza says she wouldn't change anything. She said we did the best that we could as the experts with the pool of people that we were given. Then Anele comes in and says he also wouldn't have changed anything, but leaves Zitobile with parting words, you know, because he can see that Zitobile is broken. She's broken by this experiment, you know, and leaves her with the words that, you know, she's not the experience that she had, but the experience brought her closer to her understanding herself and knowing herself better as a person, you know, and basically, girl, you know, don't take this on, all of it, as this is all of who you are. This is just something that you were in that was showing you parts of yourself. Then he cautions Tammy and tells Utami that he has a lot of work to do on himself. Siyabonga. Anele, carry on calling a thing a thing. Guys, Anele better be back season 2. I told you, this guy's got the chops. Oh, well, this is season 2. Season 3. Anele's got the chops. Like, for me, much respect. Much respect as a professional. You do the things. And he said, yeah, Tammy's got a lot of work to do, especially with Tammy's closing comments to Boitsepo, and that, you know, Tammy wasn't practicing Ubuntu, and Tammy also claims to be a Christian, and his diatribe was not demonstrating that Christ-like behavior, and told Utami that he needs to find a way to interact with people in the world, you know, that does not suggest that he sees himself as omnipotent. Oh, wait, guys, I don't even want to lie. Like, in this review, guys. Yeah! Parents will be proud. The randellas that they paid for school fees is paying off. But he is. And I love you, Anele. Thank you. Hit it on the head. Megalomaniac. That's what he is. mess. You're a mess. You're a mess. And there was a part where Tabby was like, he wants to work on himself because there's things that he knows that he doesn't understand. And I hear you saying that. I don't know if you have the will to do that. And I don't know, especially if you actually have the bandwidth and the capacity for the kind of work that reflecting on yourself and developing oneself takes. I don't know if you're there yet. I don't want you to discourage you because we are all children of God and, we all have a chance to do better. But I don't think you want to. I think you enjoy having Tammy's things Tammy's way, and now that you are D-list reality TV star, I think you're going to be lapping up any little bit of the rays of fame that you can get. And if being famous for portraying this character is what has got you in the spotlight, I don't know if you're willing to give that up for some authenticity. I don't know. Anela thanks all the guests for being a demonstration for the nation and for their courage. And I also do as well. It's very courageous what they did to come on and do the things. And Anela talks about his reaction to the recommitment ceremony when Zitobile said that she's taking Tammy and she chooses him again. Dombi was like, "Why were you having that reaction?" And Anela was like, "Listen, we have an ethical responsibility as experts, to work with a certain level of integrity." And for him, he just wanted what he was seeing to stop. And so when Zitobile said yes, Anela was just like, "Oh my God, eye roll, body roll." He couldn't believe what he was hearing. And then Dr. Zenda follows up with, she hopes that Zitobile's story can be an example to women, that they don't have to stay in one place, and they don't have to stay with a person or a place that doesn't serve them. And I can thank you for that, Dr. Zenda. But where was this energy in the last 13 episodes? I can understand maybe the difficulty and the newness of being on a television show as big as this one was and being seen by so many people and wanting to maintain your professional image. But I think you could have taken a stance. For me, particularly when it came to what was happening in between Uzitobile and Utami. Talking about the great stuff, and let's reframe it that this is an example for women that save yourself, you're amazing, you can start over at any age. Yes, all of that is true. But as a medical professional, what interventions were you taking here? Because for me, at least Anela showed up a little bit where he could in the season, but by the end of it, he was calling a thing. And yes, I'm going to remember that my friend told me that maybe I'm asking for too much in terms of, my battery's about to die, but I'm asking for too much in terms of the therapy component and how deep it needs to be going, because the priority here is making television. So I don't want to feel like I'm raking them over the coals because they're given a framework within which to work. But I think if it's a lesson for her, if they are going to bring her back in season 3, I don't know. I don't want to take food out of anybody's mouth, but maybe just it's a personal preference for me. If they are going to bring her back, for me, I think take a stance when you feel that you need to take a stance. Because Zitobile is like a broken person. She's literally been broken. She came in already fragile. You all made the comment in episode 1 when you were seeing Uzitobile that she's fragile, and then put her in the path of this man and had nothing to say to her. You even had a one-on-one with her, Dr. Zenda, about her sexuality and, the sexual experience that she was having with Tammy. Nowhere did you raise a red flag that I could see. Maybe it was not filmed, but you're talking to her there about relaxing and just being herself and not putting so much pressure on herself when we are seeing, guys, what we are doing here. Not for TV, not for ratings, and not like this. It wasn't just you, they were making a TV show. You guys are consultants who are brought in for certain things, but for me, Anele, Ubake, and even Nokwanda on some days, they were there calling the things out that needed to be called. Number 1 was Wanele, who just love you, darling, did a fabulous job. But let me get off of that, guys. If you've made it to the end, well done. because the final comment was Untombi asking Zitobile if she's dating. This woman is going to sit there and tell us yes. She's seeing somebody. Why? Hlala phansi, girl, sit down and go to therapy. Why are you... Already there were issues there that needed to be unpacked psychologically when you got to the show. Now you're walking around with complex PTSD after Tammy and you are seeing people. Why don't we want to sit down sometimes, guys, after just sit down and be with you. I'm glad it's the last episode. Well done to you for making it to the end. High five to you. Please don't forget to click the notification bell button so you know when I've uploaded again. It was fun. Listen, but like I need that year's break that I need until like they film the next season. I need it because Keberekile, guys. I hope you appreciate it. Keberekile for this review, getting through that episode and like writing the notes and sitting here talking to you and editing it. Okay, let's get Rahadi to 100, guys. Then we're going for 1,000. And then we're just reaching for the stars. Have a fabulous week. I came to give it to you hot off the press. And remember to spread love, not hate. Ciao, darlings.